Deadpool Wolverine. This is a movie that if you had told any X-Men fan that this was the finish line back in 2009, they'd probably single-handedly fill sperm banks. Today I want to set out to make Deadpool and Wolverine the two title characters from the movie. These two are probably the most detailed characters I'm going to have to make on this channel. At least the most I've done so far, because they're both designed very tactically looking and with many layers. Naturally, I'm going to start this off with the self-healing mutant. The one who can't die. The one who can— No, I'm just fucking with you, I'm not doing this bit again. Two of these videos in a row, not a chance. Fuck that. Anyway, I'm gonna start with Wolverine. I don't know what it is, but Hugh Jackman just seems to have strange proportions. His arms just look so long in the suit, with his torso weirdly short. So I try to reflect this in his body. I use my Deadpool body as a reference because Ryan and Hugh seem to be in similar height. I cut the torso to be smaller than Ryan's and his arms to be longer compared to the torso. Then I make the legs long enough to connect from the bottom of Ryan's foot stub to Hugh's torso cut. With the cutout finished, I sew it together. But I ran out of stuffing. This is all I have left. So I go and buy more stuffing. Now I can actually finish the body. Oh shit, I mean, I can work with this. I make the head. I found that when making a head, Lego figures are a pretty good base for reference material. You know, I won't lie. I don't know if I can save this. I decide to add this fucking thing on top of his head. It ends up actually helping. Next, I just attach the mutton chops. This would usually be as far as I go, but that was the old me. Now I do more detail. I paint the eyebrows and beard and then sew the head on. Now with it finished, naturally, I decide it's not enough and give him pecs. With the body done, I start working on the suit. I start with cutting out the pants and sewing them together. I sew each leg and then connect them to the crotch. I sew the boots, which are just one piece, and I put them on the pants. The top is one piece that I fold and sew the sides of. I slip the shirt onto the body and then connect the shirt to the pants. I want to make the sleeveless version of Wolverine, so I cut out these armpit pieces and... oh, but I don't have thread to match it. I just decide to use black thread to sew them together, and then to the suit. I decide to work on other smaller details till then. The next day I go to the store and I buy the thread I need. Unfortunately, I did forget to record that part. Now with the thread that I need, I can keep working. I start the suit's detailing with the boots. All it is a black stripe with a blue layer. Next I add blue straps, then the black straps. I put buckles over the black straps, and that's it. I work my way up with the blue pattern under the belt. I sew it on, then cut a yellow line that I use to separate the blue. There's a yellow layer on top of the pants, so I cut out and sew it onto the legs. Then I add more small details. I cut out the knee pads, then sew the blue onto them. The knee pads are 3 layers, so I add the final layer on, then paint it. While I wait for that to dry, I work on the torso. I start with the sides. I sew them on, then detail them. It looks like the yellow is a layer under, but there's not a chance I'm cutting that out of the blue. So I cut out the yellow stripes and sew them over it. Then I layer some black pieces on it. I then make the neck piece and attach it. I want to start on the back, but there just isn't that good of reference material for the back, so I go to bed. I lay down and start scrolling Instagram, then I find this post clearly showing the back. What a happy coincidence. The back is 2 pieces, so I cut those out and attach them. Then I add the layer on the chest, between the collar and the breastplate. I sew the ab piece on, then the breastplate. I cut out the shoulder stripes, then sew those on too. They have a yellow center, so I add that too. With all that done, I paint the torso. I have to wait for the paint to dry, so while I do that, I make the belt. Unfortunately, in an editing mistake, I deleted the footage of me actually doing it, so here's the end result. I decide to paint on the yellow he has around his suit. Before that, I make a cutout of the gloves.
I wanted to make it look more subtle, but if I'm being honest, this turned out better than expected.
While that all dries, I sew together the gloves. I flip them inside out and then put them on him despite him not being fully dried. First, I attach a black piece onto his hand and then paint on where the claws come out. I add blue lines going up the forearms and a black cuff. There's a little blue line you can barely see going down the front of the forearm. Then I add the black on top of the glove. I paint yellow lines on the glove and then I add the yellow palm stuff. That's it. He's finished. Now, I can move on to Deadpool. But before that, I decided to take a quick detour to make this TASM 1 Spider-Man. A couple months ago I made this Deadpool because I wanted the chance to make his first suit before I made the third movie suit. Unfortunately, I have to disrobe Dickless over here. I removed the costume first. Then I used the original mask as a template and cut the new one out. I then cut out the black part of the eyes and sew them on, then attach the eyes. It's good, but it's missing something. I put a little stitch between the eyes to try and make a nose. I realized I fucked up because his mask has these stupid seams running through the sides. So I draw these red Sharpie lines and then thread through them to try and fake the seam. Next are the pants. I figured the legs would be simple till I noticed the seams running through it. I can't fake these, so I spend an hour and a half trying to figure out and cut the spacing correctly to make these legs. Luckily sewing it together is simple and easy, but it takes about the same amount of time anyway. Like always, I flip it inside out and put it on my Deadpool body. I make the boots, then attach them and add soles. I then make the sleeves. Luckily, the Deadpool suit is covered in several seams that I get the luxury of replicating, taking extra hours. I decide to do the sleeves before the shirt, because I can connect the shoulders easier. I move on to the torso. I cut out this cutout, then remake it out of paper. I draw the details on the chest on it, and then cut it apart to make a pattern. After cutting it out, I sew it all together. I do the same thing for the back. then stitch the front and the back together. Then I sew the arms onto the suit. I attach the rest of the neck pieces, then I collar. Now I can start with the details. I really hate how the shoulders look, so I'm going to start with the shoulder pads. I've got to say, the shoulder pads definitely make the suit look a lot better. After making the shoulder pads, I keep going down the arm with the black bands around his biceps. I then add the armor on his hands. With the armor finished, I start with the legs. I make the knee pads first. After that, I make a little bits of armor on his boots. Then I make the shin guards. I decide to paint him because I want to go watch the boys. After the paint dries, I add the strap to the shins. Then I attach the black strips for the holsters. I would attach the holsters, but I'd like to make the guns first. I make the crotch zipper piece, then move up the chest. I have to remember to untuck the mask first, so I don't sew them together. Unfortunately, I do not remember this, and I end up sewing it together. I add the straps on the side of the suit, then paint all of it. The paint must have dried in the tube or something, because I have to consistently poke it with a pin to reopen it, or the paint won't come out. After the paint dries, I make the strap for the sword, then paint that too. I then make the belt buckle and attach it separately to the rest of the suit. I cut out the belt and sew on different black details. Then I attach the belt. Then paint on the details. I cut out the pouches on the belt and paint the buckles on. Now I can't avoid it. I have to make the weapons. I'm a little torn because it seems like the maskless variant has the gold guns that Deadpool can be seen wielding in the movie. But he also has his more standard guns, so I'll start with the swords. I find an image off Google that looks promising enough and decide to base my whole katana off of it. The sword seems to be kinda skinny, so I pull out my old swords. I use a thin plastic mesh and cut a strip off. Then I cut out the handles and the blade and attach them together. Then I sew it to the plastic. After that, I add this piece that I don't really know the name of, and paint the handles. When those dry, I paint the blade. While all that dries, I make the guns. These are the guns I made for the first movie. I want to make the new ones smaller. I cut out the new guns. They changed the color from silver to black. I opt for the black ones and cut them out. I sew them together, but I'm too lazy to show that part because there's so many pieces. I use stuffing to stuff the gun there and then sew it up. After that, I cut the holster pieces. First, I attach the part that holds the gun onto the holster. Then the piece that connects it to the belt. I sew it onto Deadpool, then move to the back. I cut out the katana holder piece and sew them together. Then I cut the sheaths and sew them together. Then put the swords in them. I sew one sword to the back, then get tired and decide to paint it before I go to sleep. The next morning, the paint is dried, so I tried to draw the Deadpool logo onto the paint. It looks fucking ass and I hate it, but there's no going back now, so I holster the guns. I attach the other katana holder, and then sew the katanas to the back. He's finally finished. Nope, he isn't. I'm getting elbow pads. I make and attach the elbow pads, and now I'm finally done. So, Hot Toys released their first look at their Wolverine figure. I decided instead of making what I keep seeing in the trailers, I'll just make him perfect, because, I mean, why the fuck wouldn't I? I cut out the shoulder pads and attached them to the suit. Most of the details need to be done in paint, so I make the mask. I decided to cut out and detail the face all at once. Then paint and add the eyebrows on after. I kind of fucked up the paint, but I don't mind too much because I'm overall really happy with this guy. And that's it. Deadpool and Wolverine. Overall, I think this took me a month and a half of off and on work to make these guys, so, you know, I hope you like them. You can get a better look at them over at my Instagram, Pcssfc, under the same name, obviously. Why would I change it? But yeah, that's it.